Imagine a city just gone like that. Buildings turned to dust, so many lives
It's
lost.
hard to even picture it, isn't it?
And then a few years later, it's alive again. A bustling city.
Rebuilt against all odds.
That's Hiroshima. And today we're going deep, like really deep, into how a city hit by an atomic bomb could bounce back so fast.
It's incredible.
Our guide is this video from Fisher and Elias, Your Brother Explains, on YouTube. They break down the science, the stories, the sheer will of the people. It's amazing.
It really shows you what humans are capable of, but it's also, a huge reminder of the power of these weapons, the destructive force.
Exactly. So if we want to get how Hiroshima recovered, we got to start with radiation. The video talks about two types, initial and residual.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
It's like, think of the worst sunburn you could imagine, but 1,000 times worse. That's what that initial radiation does, right?
It's immediate, intense impact. Devastating, yeah. But the good thing is, it doesn't stick around in the environment long term.
Oh, that's good at least. So what about that other kind, residual, the fallout? That's the one we always hear about.
Right. So picture this. When an atom splits, it leaves behind these little radioactive pieces.
Like crumbs.
Yeah, kind of. They're called fission products, and they cling to debris, and that's what makes the fallout. But how much fallout there is, well, that depends a lot on how the bomb explodes.
Oh, I see. So how did that work with Hiroshima?
The Hiroshima bomb was an airburst, meaning it blew up high above the ground. And actually, that made the fallout way less than if it had been a ground burst.
Really? Why is that? Seems kind of backward.
Think about it this way. Since it exploded in the air, most of that radioactive stuff got spread out over a big area, like how dust just blows away in the wind. But a ground burst, all that bad stuff stays concentrated in one spot, makes it dangerous for much longer.
Ah, okay. So less concentrated fallout in Hiroshima. But the video did mention black rain. Wasn't that radioactive too?
It was. Basically, rain mixed with all the soot and radioactive stuff from the explosion created this nasty radioactive rain.
It sounds awful.
It was. And to this day, there are questions about the long-term effects. Lots of folks who got caught in it have been fighting to be recognized and get help for decades.
Man, that's just heartbreaking. But even with that rain, Hiroshima didn't become a radioactive wasteland for decades, like some places, right?
Exactly. The video talks about this thing called the 7-10 rule. Basically, radiation levels drop really, really fast in those first few days and weeks.
Okay.
For every 7 hours that pass, the radiation goes down by like 90%. So it decayed pretty quickly, meaning it was safer to go back to Hiroshima sooner than you might think.
So people started going back pretty much right away after this crazy event.
It's pretty wild, right? And the video tells some stories that really show how tough people are. Like there was this guy, Harina, a water engineer. He got the city's water working again just hours after the bombing.
Wait, seriously, hours? I can't even imagine. What must it have been like to be him?
It's just mind-blowing. And then there's Yoshihide Shida. This guy went around street by street plugging up leaky pipes.
Whoa.
Didn't want to waste any water. Even the Bank of Japan opened again just 2 days after the bombing.
You're kidding.
They set up shop outside so they could help people. Imagine that.
It's unbelievable.
And get this, the tram started running again on August 9th, the same day Nagasaki was bombed.
It's just, I don't even know what to say. The strength of people to keep going after something like that.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
So the desire to rebuild was there right from the start. But rebuilding a whole city from scratch, I mean, were there like major challenges, roadblocks they had to get over?
Oh, absolutely. At first, there wasn't really a set plan for how to rebuild.
I can imagine.
And think about how much was gone. Hospitals, doctors, everything.
Right.
So people started making their own homes, these makeshift shelters.
They called them what, atomic bomb slums?
Yeah, that's what they called them. It was rough.
So how did they go from that, from just trying to survive to rebuilding a whole city?
Well, the Japanese government got involved. In 1949, they passed this law, the Hiroshima Peace Memorial City Construction Law.
Okay.
That was huge. It meant the whole country was going to help fund getting Hiroshima back on its feet.
So it wasn't just the people, amazing as they were, but the government really got things rolling.
Yeah, you could say that. And this was all happening when Japan's economy was taking off after the war. More women were working. Everyone needed stuff, partly because of the Korean War.
Yeah.
It was kind of like everything lined up at the right time for Hiroshima.
So a strong economy helps when you're trying to rebuild a whole city, I guess.
For sure. But rebuilding wasn't just about putting buildings back up. There was this big question about, like, how do you remember what happened?
You mean, how do you have a modern city and not forget the past?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people thought Hiroshima should be totally new, like no signs of the bomb at all.
Yeah.
But then there were the Hibakusha, the survivors. They were dealing with so much. And what did it even mean to live in a city marked by this event forever?
I can't imagine having to make those kinds of decisions. How do you balance those ideas?
Well, Hiroshima did both. They rebuilt most of this city as a modern place,
Right.
But right in the center, where the bomb hit, they created the Peace Park, and they kept the A-bomb dome.
The A-bomb dome. It's that building, just the shell of it, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Such a powerful image.
It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site now. A reminder about peace, about getting rid of nuclear weapons. And the Peace Park has a museum, tells the stories of the victims.
So they honored the past but kept moving forward. It's incredible that by 1958, only 13 years after the bombing, Hiroshima had more people than before the war.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's like it speaks to how strong people can be, but it also makes you think about all the other stuff, not just buildings, but like rebuilding lives, communities.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, what can we learn from this? All of us, What can we learn from Hiroshima so this never happens again, so we don't have nuclear weapons hanging over us?
Something that hit me in the video was a lot of the victims were Korean, right?
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that. Maybe like 1 in 7 who died were Korean. Most of them were forced laborers during the war.
It's terrible.
Their stories don't always get told, which just shows like history is complicated. You got to hear everyone's story,
Right, not just one side of it.
Remembering and like coming to terms with it all, it has to include everyone if it's going to mean anything.
This whole deep dive into Hiroshima has been, well, it's been a lot. We talked about radiation and people being so resilient and the struggles of rebuilding. It's heavy stuff.
It is. But I think at the end of it, what sticks with me is even when something so awful happens, so hard to understand, there's still hope. People can rebuild, they can find a way to heal, and things can get better.
It makes you think about what recovery even means, after something like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Hiroshima's story kind of shows us a little bit. It's not just the buildings, right? It's like dealing with what happened, remembering everyone who's gone, and making sure it never happens again,
At the end of the video, they have this quote from Hiroshima's mayor, Kazumi Matsui. It's pretty powerful. He calls Hiroshima a holy site, like a place to learn about what happened, but also to see how the city's changed, how it's come back.
Right. And the thing is, Matsui really focuses on the people. Like, people caused this, but people also rebuilt. We're capable of the worst stuff, but also incredible healing,
It's like we have a choice. Do we repeat the past or do we learn from it and try to make things better? That's kind of what this whole thing's about, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the biggest thing from Hiroshima. It reminds us what nuclear weapons can do, but there's also hope there. Even after something so awful, we can rebuild, we can heal, and we can work towards a world where peace isn't just a dream.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you, the listener, what part of Hiroshima's story really sticks with you? Is it how fast they rebuilt, the strength of the people, or that message of peace that's like woven through everything they've done?
Everyone takes something different from this story, I think. Maybe it's the small acts of courage like that water engineer who just works so hard to get the water back on. Or maybe it's everyone coming together to put their lives back together.
Whatever it is, I think it's important to think about Hiroshima, what it means even now. We encourage you to learn more about the Hibakusha, the survivors, and hear their stories. Explore what it took to rebuild the city. And think about how you can be part of the conversation about getting rid of nuclear weapons. Because in the end, Hiroshima isn't just about the past. It's a lesson about the choices we make, the choices that shape our future.